Welcome to Sales TV, where we tackle the reality that there's no easy button in sales. If you're an account executive or customer success representative striving to build relationships and pipeline while navigating the challenges of modern sales, you're in the right place. In every episode, we explore one thing that brings you closer to achieving success without stress. So, I am thrilled to host Lara Barnes today, a true powerhouse in the world of leadership, customer success, and customer experience. Lara brings over 25 years of expertise in building and leading high growth, customer centric technology businesses. She's been recognized with the prestigious Outstanding Women in Customer Success Award recently, and as Team Leader of the Year in Tech in 2020. Her leadership has transformed teams and organizations, creating end-to-end SaaS customer success experiences while maintaining an unwavering focus on delivering value and fostering trust. Lara's passion for helping customers achieve their goals and her innovative approach to creating winning teams makes her an inspiring figure. And as someone I've had the pleasure of working with, please join me in welcoming a transformational leader, Lara Barnes.
Hi, what an introduction. That was fantastic.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. You've done so much. You've done so much.
Yeah, I have done a lot. It does sound amazing. You don't actually feel it yourself though. You feel it's exhausting listening to how much I have done. But it has been fun and there's loads of stuff I can share.
Yeah. I bet there's some amazing stories for you to tell. Would you add anything to that intro? Have I missed anything that you want to let our audience know?
I won a Transformation Leader Award last year. Gainsight gave me their Transformation Leader Award, which was fantastic because I'd done the life cycle project across the business.
Yeah.
And that really did provide a huge amount of value to the company across, and we can talk about that. But I love that. But I love the powerhouse piece. That's just fantastic. Use that. I'm going to put that on my LinkedIn. Powerhouse in my title.
Indeed. How do you win all these awards? Does someone just come knocking on the door and say you've done amazing stuff?
Well, I'm not really the person that puts themselves out there for those awards. Honestly, it was my team that put me forward for the 2020 Women in Tech one.
Yeah.
Team Leader of the Year one. And then somebody in my team who I just adore wrote the script for that one. And I said, look, I really want to go in for this Women in Customer Success one. Would you write the script for it? Because you seem to do really well. You won me the last one. And he wrote it. And I was one of the spotlight winners. There was 3 of us globally, and it was amazing.
Brilliant.
And he also did the other one, the Gainsight Transformation Leader Award. So he's actually going to be hired when I get my next job as my PR consultant.
Brilliant. And he's supporting women in tech. I love it.
Yeah.
So many men are supporting women.
You need that. You do need it. You need your advocates around the business. And, you know, most of the senior leaders are men. So you need to have those individuals who are rooting for you and are there with you the whole way.
Yeah, indeed. So let's dive in with a relatively bold question, right? So you've run many different teams. As I mentioned before, we've had the pleasure of working together. But since we were working together, the world has moved on, and it continues to move on at a rapid pace.
Yeah.
But what are some of the biggest challenges that you see across customer success and account executives in this fast-paced B2B world?
I think from a broader scale, it's ensuring that the customer success team have got an ability to show their value in the business, whether they're on a dashboard somewhere driving leads for the sales team to be thinking about and delivering upon. I think it comes down to how the sales team operate with the customer success team too, how they are compensated, how they engage and work together. And I think how customer success is part of the go-to-market is another huge one for me,
Mm.
in how customer success is seen and how and what they do in terms of playing in that whole process of go-to-market, and how they're measured.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those are the things that I think are, big challenges still in
Yeah.
SaaS businesses, because everyone is just so siloed. And when you start looking at the overall process the customer goes through, there are so many different departments across that life cycle that touch that customer, that is still not seamless and
Mm.
fall through the cracks in those departmental silos, as well as everybody is not measured on delivering for the customer.
Yeah.
Everyone across that business, whether it's, product put features out, so it's all about what features they're putting out and what deadlines they're going to hit, and what's the roadmap. Then you've got marketing. They're looking at, marketing leads for the sales team to go and close and drum up business, but they're also there to help build out the brand. So they've got different metrics. And then you've got the sales team and the pre-sales team. They're there to drive bookings. Then you've got the sales, the customer success team. They're there for onboarding and ensuring that there's a great onboarding, so it goes through to adoption, consumption, retention, driving NPS, advocacy, all those great stories, so the sales team can use them. But then you've also, got support. You go on, and not everybody is like threaded for the customer experience. And I think that's one of the main things that is so challenging to many of these SaaS businesses at the current time, because we're seeing so many customers with very high expectations now. It's got worse, to be honest, over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Those customers wanting a better experience and expecting it, and it should be delivered.
Yeah.
And that's not happening
Yeah.
as fast as the customer actually wants it, because these organizations don't have the foundations in order to identify those pain points. In terms of the systems and processes are not there foundationally to help those sales teams and customer success teams identify where those risks and opportunities are in the data, and then in the tracking of where that customer is at any point in time in their life cycle.
Yeah. I think that's a challenge for any business. We've had the luxury, I guess, of working together in an organization that did it well.
Yeah.
And we've also had the, I guess, the opposite to luxury of working in an organization that didn't do it so well. And I think we'll come back to that piece, that value piece, a bit later on. But in terms of, customer success reps in the field,
Yeah.
and actually, let me just go off on a little tangent for a moment, because a big part of what I do is around helping companies develop pipeline and doing it in a way in which they enjoy, that isn't a negative experience, disruptive experience to the buyer. Many salespeople have experienced high levels of stress, and some struggling with mental health as a result of being forced to do things that they don't believe will work over time.
Yeah.
And what was interesting in this study, so the state of mental health, or the state of sales and mental health 2024, is that the guy that runs that survey from the Sales Health Alliance, a guy called Jeff Risley, included customer success in
Right.
2024.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the story isn't much different. It felt like this shift from, okay, so new business isn't as predictable as it once was. Let's
Mhm.
put pressure on the customer success team.
Yeah.
Oh dear, we're putting those people under the same level of stress and pressure. And now we can see that their stress levels have rocketed and they're suffering with their mental health. Do you,
Yeah, we had this, so we did, and actually a lot of it's born out of the inefficiencies of the business and how it operates,
mm,
more so than the and that puts pressure on the CSM in terms of the amount of work that is needed to be done, because they're constantly reinventing the wheel. It's not a fluid process, or you're not going back and you've got the right documentation, or you've got a great template, or the product's changed so much and now you need to explain to the customer and you've got to go through more training. So you're constantly in this flywheel of over and over and over and over again. It's not as if these businesses invest in the systems and processes, like I said, in order to make it easy for sales and customer success and the rest of the delivery org for customers. And that really does put a lot of pressure on, because you're constantly going over the same stuff for multiple different customers, whereas it's just inefficient. But the pressure that CSMs are under and the hours that they work is exactly the same as the sales team. Because if you're in an organization where you're there to deliver the leads, we did an exceptional job in doing that, and we worked very closely with the sales team and had a great relationship with them, because they could see that our leads were closing half the time that their leads were closing. So it was just easy to close those, so that we could all win by hitting the quarterly targets, because you're up against those targets. And it's a stressful place to be when you haven't got the new business that isn't closing as fast as it used to be. So the things that we used to do to help the CSMs was you needed to be pretty empathetic. It's not, you couldn't just say, keep getting the whip out and say, let's just keep going. You needed to ensure that you gave them those breaks, and you gave them those duvet days when they need them. Or, we worked really hard at the end of a quarter, go and have a day or two off. I never used to record this stuff, but in the holiday or anywhere, I used to say, just go and do it. Because otherwise, you have to use the things that you had as a leader the opportunity to use. And luckily, I had the opportunity to just give somebody some time out.
Do the right thing.
Yeah, and you have to do the right thing by people, otherwise they don't stay with you. And you spend a lot of time hiring amazing people, and you need to look after them within the org, and they need to know that you care about them. Because otherwise, why else would they want to work with you and get up in the morning and do those hours again and again and again when they're not getting anything back from it? The other thing is development. You need to be able to give them that view and give them those extra projects where they can see that they're moving forward and developing, rather than staying in the same job and doing the same thing for months.
And on that, doing the right thing, and I guess why you've been so successful over the years. If we, you've talked about the importance of setting customer promises. Can you share how you've turned promises into measurable outcomes, and how that builds trust and loyalty with customers?
Yeah, it was all part of how we bought 4 companies, and during that time, it was pretty chaotic. They all had different provisioning requirements. We were still trying to upskill everyone. We were out there all selling it. It was pretty hard to manage. And so when we could see the customers were falling through different cracks in the organization, different departments and we had no real one system that everyone could see to track where a customer was at any point in time in their life cycle. So this life cycle project was really important, and how we tied all that data together is really important. So what we did was we really focused in on how we built the insights to those across every single department, but we also then built out a framework with marketing, because we started right at the beginning of the cycle. So we went to marketing and we said, right, we've gone from 3 to 12 products. How are we going to show the user cases? Like, you're working on the user cases, you're working on the sales pitch. How are we going to show from like end to end that you've sold that this product can do a specific user case to solve a problem for a customer? How are we going to show that we can actually deliver it? And everyone sat back and they were like, oh yeah, It's like genius. And so what we did was we did it quite in a linear way, and we worked very closely with a very engaged product manager initially on one of the products. So we took it as one, not, don't bite the whole elephant, but take little bites. So we went to one product leader, and he was very, very good. And he worked with it. He's now the chief product officer, but he was exceptional because he worked with us to really help in how we can identify from end to end across the product, what does it mean to adopt? Like, how do you get to 25, 50, 75% adoption? And then what are those user cases? And then how can we track that? So that really helped in terms of understanding how we could deliver on the customer promise, because we would set, maybe 3 objectives for the CSM along that whole process to adoption, and that would be identified by the CSM and what needed to be done during that process, and they would measure themselves on that because it was hitting the customer's objectives. But what we called this was a value realization framework.
Right.
And so we then identified what are those golden features to get to 25% adoption, to 50, to 75. And then we tracked those 3 objectives quite in a linear way through telemetry, because we put telemetry in to ensure that we were on that right road for that customer. Because a customer will stay with you if they're getting value. But if they're not getting value, or they're not achieving any more than they did before with the previous technology, they're not seeing that value. So you need to be able to show them what's the next step, what's the next road in order to adopt or get to their user case. So we had quite a linear way of operating.
And how much of the customer getting value, feeling the value, was, the customer success rep responsible for in terms of how they got them there, how they positioned the value, articulated, that path to.
And it's really, that was, the CSM was really important, but how the AE pitched and, talked to that customer around what they were going to get from it. So the positioning is really important, because that it kind of flows from ideal customer profile into the positioning, and the expectation is so important.
So you have the AE working alongside your customer success team, the account executive.
Right at the beginning. And then what we did was it was really trying to understand what their expectation was from that customer, and then how we would then replicate that. So that handover is obviously always so important. And then when we needed that AE, we would bring them in. So if we identified an opportunity, or we needed them to, perhaps there was a risk or anything on the account, we would bring that AE in order to help assist us. So there was a very clear collaboration.
But that path to value, that value proposition, and that path to value, that overall strategy in terms of how the customer got from A to B or A to Z was driven by your team, you and your team.
It was, because we held that responsibility in order to even just navigate for the customer across the organization. It was our responsibility to make sure that things happened for that customer, even if it was working with professional services or engineering, or working with the product team and feeding things back to the product. We would go to the marketing team and say, we've got this customer that could be a prospect for prospect calls, or case study, so we had very clear KPIs in terms of what we needed to deliver. And those KPIs were, net retention, gross retention, overall retention of book of business, NPS, advocacy, and leads.
It strikes me that will bring, that'll bring so much value across so many teams, not just the customer success team, by having that and driving that, that approach.
I think it's really taking what I did was with the culture of the team was we took accountability, and there are many times over the years where we would not see the accountability from other teams, but I'd always just turn around and say, we own it, run it, and make it happen. You've got the responsibility of making that happen for the customer.
Yeah, yeah. Victoria agreeing there. 100% agree, Lara. It all starts with sales and a seamless handover to
Yeah,
CS. That's an interesting one because, you know, we assume it all starts with sales, but I think what you're describing there in terms of creating that value proposition and that path to value for customers, it really starts with you, and then sales can be trained and enabled on
yeah.
that value proposition and how to articulate that value. So they're more likely to win the right customers, and you're
Mhm.
more likely to make those customers successful.
Absolutely. And as a CS leader, I really take accountability for seeing the business as a whole, not just being a CS leader in my silo. And I think because I represent the customer, so the opportunity to educate the rest of the organization on how customers are being serviced, what customers need, and how we can make things better, grow, show risk, work more cohesively across the business is a big part of like how I think about my role
Mm,
and how I influence the rest of the organization. And I think a lot of the time CS is very, very privileged to see everything end to end, like from
mm,
how you go to market with the product, how the product works, all the way through to how you renew that business or don't. And so, because you have so many insights and you can pick up a lot of the data across the business in order to validate what is happening, there is I think it's a real responsibility from a customer success leader to assume that responsibility across the business to help everybody else,
yeah.
because otherwise, who else is doing it?
Mm.
Nobody.
Yeah. Yeah, otherwise we live in this transactional world where it's
Yeah,
just this constant hand to mouth
yeah,
situation.
exactly. And everyone is, and I think there's a real fluidity that a CS leader can bring in engaging with the other teams to
Mm,
provide them with that data and those insights so
yeah.
that the rest of the business can grow. Um, and otherwise, you're just sitting in your silo, right?
Yeah.
And you feel a victim in your silo. And I think that's where the positioning and how I think about my role in businesses is that it's not about being the victim and sitting there saying, oh, I'm not on the dashboard, I'm not part of go to market. It's about showing how you should
Mm,
be on that dashboard with the partner team, the sales team, the marketing team, with all their leads, and how and what your leads are delivering. And when you're sitting there and you can see all the other teams and how your team is screaming along with 45% conversion rate and driving, an incredible amount of leads and closing within 45 days versus 90 to
wow.
120, those are the numbers that you can say, I am delivering value and impact in this organization.
And how much, from your perspective, how much did the numbers do the talking versus your transformational leadership expertise kind of collaborating and bringing other leaders along
I,
on the ride?
yeah, advice would be start with the data, because if you haven't got data, no one's going to listen to you if you don't have some numbers to really guide you. And in fact, your CFO is also a very influential person in the
Mm,
organization too, because they're the ones that are looking at the performance and productivity of all teams across the business. And if you can show them that in investing in not in a new AE that may not deliver any more than X percentage of their
mm,
number, but putting a CS person on more accounts to drive more growth in accounts and
yeah.
drive better NPS, and drive, more leads that close than another AE, let's just say,
Mm,
because that's where, more when you see new employee headcount, it's always in sales. But if
mm,
you show that the productivity of other areas of the business could drive more than that, because
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer. And I had that conversation with my CFO where he said, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Instead of putting this amount of headcount here, we're going to put it in your team. Because
Nice.
I could show the numbers. I did one chart with, it was just a slide with lots of boxes on it with loads of numbers in terms of what we were driving, in terms of increased NPS if we had a CSM on accounts, the amount of CSQLs that would close. So therefore, that CSM would earn the money that we would invest in the CSM.
Yeah.
It was across all of those different metrics, that retention, it was across all of them. And it was brilliant. It was, relationship really helped me.
Yeah. So you built high performing teams with some of the lowest attrition rates.
Yeah.
What's, not everybody's got the luxury of having a leader like you. What advice would you give to CS teams out there that, agree with what you're saying? They want the same in their organization, but it's not quite there yet. Can it be changed from the ground up, convincing leadership to change?
I think you don't need to start with trying to convince people. I think it's important to be monitoring and measuring how you're performing. I think the biggest thing, was a company I worked for, and it was Facebook actually. And the measure of your success was, what impact are you having? And it was massive on me, because I'm huge on accountability and responsibility. How can I measure my impact daily? How can I do that? And I think by thinking about what measures and showing what you are doing in a constructive way, and then trying to, as a leader, looking at that at scale, is really one of the things that I would suggest to any leader in how you start to drive high performing teams. You start with the data, but I think how people feel about coming to work is, you can't underestimate that. You have to have the right principles. You have to lead by example. And I think it's important that they can see you care about them.
Yeah.
You want to do the right thing by people.
Yeah. And, if we kind of take it down a level and look practically at what some of those things are that CS folks could actually measure, if they don't have that guidance within their organization, what are the things that you think they should measure, I guess, from a tactical perspective?
A lot of CSMs provide sales teams or an AE that they're working with a lead, but they don't actually record it anywhere.
Right.
And then they don't record how much that lead, how long it took to close it, and how long, and they might have been involved in, additional conversations with that customer, but they're not getting anything themselves from that either. The salesperson gets compensated on going and closing it, because that's what they're really good at. And I think sales individuals are exceptional at negotiation and going in and doing that. And that should not be a CSM job. But what I do think, practically, you can monitor and measure. You can see Salesforce or any sales tool that you're working within. You can see how long that lead started. So that CSM might not put that sales lead in, right? But the salesperson will. And then you can just measure and monitor that in an Excel sheet. But you can show that, as well as a manager, that multiple people within your team are doing this, and from X date to X date, it took 45 days or whatever to close, and it brought in 180,000 or whatever it was. Then you've got a business case to say, actually, even if my CSM's got 1% of that's a sum of money that they didn't have before. And that's how I started. We started with an Excel sheet.
Wow. Yeah.
So we started with, 4 million was the first one. And it was rubbish. It wasn't 4 million of lead, like, business that we closed off. It was way more. It's just that all the CSM globally weren't attaching everything in this Excel sheet. But the following year, we got on the dashboard, and we actually drove 15 million of booked business.
Wow.
And then, yeah, so it was pretty significant. But then we really focused in on the level of working with the AEs and how we did that, and going into their sales meetings and really focusing on how those leads then closed.
Yeah. Right, we're running out of time. So
Okay.
finally, what's one piece of advice you wish you would have had earlier on in your career?
I know, I thought about this earlier. And it was, I actually was very lucky to have been given lots of advice early on.
Yeah.
And I think that thing I said earlier about trying to establish what impact you have every day
Yeah.
really helped me kind of think about how I set my goals every single year as to what I want to achieve, and actually measuring those goals and seeing how, if you do something every single day, even if it's a tiny little thing to get towards your goal, that really helps you achieve it.
Yeah.
And thinking about how you're going to do it as well, and then doing something every month towards it, that it also helps. But measuring that impact and showing how you're having an impact on that organization,
Yeah.
the benefit that I did from very early on to show how I'm going to get that next promotion. If you're
Yeah.
not tracking that, you're going in and you're just managing customers, great, because that's what you do, but you need to be able to show the impact.
Yeah. It'll wear you down. You need to feel like you're making some progress. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant advice. Thank you so much, Lara. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you, Adam, Jackie, and Victoria Williams for your comments. Without you guys, the show wouldn't be the show. Until next time,